Hi, let us study about rockets and artificial satellites. In this tutorial, we shall study about the principle of rockets, about the working of a rocket, about the concept of multi-stage rockets, the concept of orbital velocity and escape velocity. Then we shall study about launching of a satellite. We shall study about geostationary satellites and about Indian space programs. Now, before that, it's important for us to recall and understand that the momentum of a body is equal to the product of the mass and the velocity. That is the first point. Second point is action and reaction are always equal and opposite. Newton's third law. Third thing, acceleration due to gravity, it varies with the height of the object above the earth's surface. The equation for centripetal force is given by F is equal to mv square by r, where m is equal to mass of the body, v is the orbital velocity, and r is equal to radius of the orbit. In case of planets and in case of satellites, the centripetal force is the gravitational force. One more thing we got to understand, that according to Newton's universal law of gravitation, the force is given by G into the product of the masses divided by the square of the distance between them, either d square or it could be either r square. Let us go to the next point. Now let us understand the concept of the rockets or the principle of rockets. The small firework rocket which you may have used during your Diwali and the rocket that goes into space, they both work on the same principle. So what is the principle? The principle is called as the principle of conservation of momentum. The principle states that the total momentum of a system is conserved. It means that it remains constant when the net force acting on it is 0. So I'll repeat it. The total momentum of a system is conserved. That is, it remains constant when the net external force acting on the system is 0. Now for this we got to understand the concept of bullet and the rifle. Now consider the case of a bullet when it is fired from a rifle. Now before firing, both the bullet and the rifle are at rest, which means the initial momentum is equal to 0. Just look at the diagram over here. Now before the bullet is fired, now both the bullet as well as the rifle, they are at rest. That is total momentum is equal to 0. Now when the bullet is fired, so obviously the bullet leaves the muzzle of the rifle. Since it is moving, it has got a momentum. Momentum is equal to mass into velocity, which we just saw it before, and at the same time the rifle moves back or recoils with a velocity equal to v. Now applying the principle of conservation of momentum to this rifle and bullet, now we know that the total momentum of this system, it remains constant if the total force acting on it is 0. So for that we got to understand that if m is the mass of the bullet, if small m is the mass of the bullet, and if v is the velocity of the bullet, and if capital M is the mass of the rifle, and v e is the recoil velocity of the rifle, v, or in this case you can simply state as v, then we understand that mv plus mve should be equal to 0. Okay, bringing v is equal to the other side, then we can state that the recoil velocity is equal to minus mv divided by capital M. So this is a very important equation. The rocket works on this principle, that is, when a rocket is fired, there is a lot of fuel that burns, and this fuel that is burnt is converted into gases at a very high pressure. Now these gases, they escape from the nozzle of the rocket with a very high velocity, because of the high velocity of the exhaust gases, the rocket gains the momentum in the opposite direction and it moves upward. And now let us go to understand the next concept. Now let us see how a rocket actually works. Now before that, okay, let us see what are the parts of the rocket, how a rocket actually looks like. Now this is how a rocket looks like. This is a part of the rocket. Now you can see that the rocket has got a payload over here. Now this is for the guidance nose. Now this is where the fuel and the oxidants are kept. They are kept separately, they are not mixed. So later on, now they are mixed in controlled proportions, they are mixed properly in controlled quantities, and then they get ignited in this combustion chamber. And here is a nozzle, right? I'll read for you. This is a guidance, this is a fuel, oxidant, this area is called as turbine, this is propellant injection pumps, you can see it over here, these two pumps over here, regenerative cooling, that's one thing. This is a payload which we just told you, and this is a turbine gas generator, and then propellant nozzles are over here. So this is the jet nozzle, this is the combustion chamber, this entire chamber is called as combustion chamber. You can see it over here. Because of the exhaust gases in the downward direction, it gives a forward upward thrust, and that is why the rocket moves upward, and at the same time the weight of the rocket is always being pulled because of the gravity towards the earth. Now let us go on to understand the concepts, the working principle of the rocket. We just saw the principle, we just saw how a bullet and rifle works. Now rockets work on the principle of a bullet and rifle, that is, in case of rocket, the fuel is burnt in the combustion chamber. The burnt fuel results in a very hot gases which are shoot out backwards, that is in the backward direction, that is it recoils at a very high velocity, which provides the rocket an upward or a forward thrust. Now this is how a rocket works like. The rockets can also operate in a vacuum, very important point. Now because they carry their own oxidant. Oxidant is a substance that provides oxygen to the fuel. It is called as an oxidant. So the combination of oxidant and the fuel, they are called as propellants. Before we go into this equation, let us understand certain facts. The rocket has to move vertically up. The rocket has to move in this direction. It has to move with a velocity, with a recoil velocity called as VE. We just saw that some time back that VE is equal to minus m into V divided by capital M. Then the action should be towards the earth, that is achieved by burning the fuel inside the rocket so that the exhaust gases can escape through an exit towards the earth. Now this is how the entire concept works like. Now in this case, so I can come back to this point. The mass of the rocket, if it includes the mass of the propellant inside it and also the payload. Now what is the payload then? The payload of the rocket, it consists of scientists, satellites and other scientific instruments. Okay, now when the fuel burns and releases the exhaust, there will be an increase in the velocity of the rocket because the fuel is being burnt and the exhaust gases are being let out through the nozzle with a very very high velocity. Now this gases are being being pushed downwards towards the earth, which will give a velocity in the upward direction to the rocket. The acceleration of the rocket in the upward direction is decided by the mass of the rocket. Okay, but most importantly, it is decided by the amount of a fuel being burned, that is the rate at which the fuel is being burnt. We got to go to this equation now. Depends on the rate of the fuel consumption and also with the exhaust velocity of. Now it can be written that the rate of the fuel consumption, that is the amount of fuel being burnt, which we call it as an R, and it depends upon the exhaust velocity of the gases. Obviously now that should be equal to the mass of the rocket into acceleration of the rocket. So the product mass of the rocket into acceleration is called as a thrust on the rocket. That is, we can say that thrust is equal to R into exhaust velocity is equal to mass into acceleration. It's very important to understand that as the rocket consumes fuel at every instant, the mass goes on decreasing because it goes on because more fuel is being burnt. As the fuel keeps on burning, so obviously the mass of the rocket keeps on decreasing over a period of time. That's one thing. Second thing is the acceleration due to gravity, it continuously changes because the rocket keeps on ascending. Third thing, the atmosphere also offers resistance in the lower strata to the rocket, right? And we just saw that the payload of the rocket also is very equally important. The payload consists of the scientists, scientific instruments, and the propellants. The mass of the rocket basically includes the mass of the propellants and the payload. That is, the ratio of the payload mass to the fuel mass is called as a payload ratio. The last one is the propellants are kept in separate chambers and they are supplied to the engine in controlled quantities with the help of the valves. Now let us understand the concept of multi-stage rockets. Just look at the diagram over here. Now this is the lift-off time. Just note it over here. The time is 0 seconds. In this case, the main engine and the solid motor boosters, they get ignited in the first stage. That is called a lift-off stage. The moment a rocket takes off in this direction, that is after 1 minute 4 seconds, a diagram has been taken over in a specific case, the solid motors, they burn out. The solid motors, whatever are there over here, they get burned out. Exactly after 1 minute 39 seconds, the solid motors that were burnt, they fall away. You can see it, they are falling away over here and they fall back to the earth. Next, after 4 minutes and 24.2 seconds, the main engine burns out. Whatever is the main engine that is put over here in the first stage, that burns out. The moment the first stage is over, obviously the second stage starts over here. At a time 4 minutes 37.7 seconds, just in a matter of around some 10-15 seconds, the second stage gets ignited. It gets ignited, and exactly after 4 minutes 56 seconds, the nose cone splits and it falls away. The nose cone of the rocket, which is over here, you can see it. The nose cone over here, it splits and it falls away. After 10 minutes 23 seconds, now second stage cut off. Second stage is over there. Then the rocket goes on in the horizontal direction for some time. That is equal to in the span of t is equal to 51 minutes. After 15 minutes and 40 seconds, second stage it reignites over there. After 48 seconds, it again cuts off over there. During that time, the satellite separates from the rocket. During that process, the satellite is already left into an orbit where it is supposed to rotate. So this is the concept of multi-stage rockets. Then let us go to the theoretical explanation of that. Now, why a multi-stage rocket was required? Now, a single rocket by itself cannot lift heavy load. That was a disadvantage with a single stage rocket. The load increases as the height increases. Several rockets, they are joined together to provide the necessary power to the rockets. The rockets built in this way, they are called as multi-stage rockets. We just saw it, how it actually worked over there. They are basically used to launch the space vehicles or the satellites. Now, in that case, what happens is, the rocket at the start must be given sufficient velocity to rise to the desired height. Now, if I don't give that thrust or the velocity, then the rocket will not be able to rise to the desired height. But if sufficient velocity is given, then it reaches the desired height. When it has ascended the required height, that is, the satellite is left in the orbit with sufficient horizontal velocity. Now in this case, just note that now we saw that the rocket started moving in the horizontal direction, and the horizontal velocity should be in such a way that if it is greater than the required velocity, then satellite will escape into the space from the Earth's gravity. If it is less than the required velocity, then obviously it will fall back to the Earth. Multi-stage rockets are basically used because they help in fuel consumption, they enable to reach greater heights, and it has got better efficiency. Now let us go on to understand certain concepts regarding orbital velocity and escape velocity. Now what is an orbital velocity? So we have already learned it in chapters like circular motion and gravitation. Now the velocity of the body along the circular path is called as orbital velocity. Now let's look at the diagram over here. Okay, now you can see that the gravitational force, this is a gravitational force. Now this is an orbit velocity over here. You can see it in this direction. You can see centripetal. Now this is what we call it as a h, the height of the object above the Earth's surface. Now this is the radius r of the Earth. This is the radius of the orbit. Okay, we already know that the centripetal force is basically used when an object moves in a circular orbit. Now, for example, in this case, centripetal force of the moon is equal to the gravitational force, right? Now, that is, if centrifugal force is given by the equation m into v naught square of the moon divided by r, this is equal to, me, that is mass of the Earth into mass of the moon divided by again r square as per the universal law of gravitation. Okay, where m is the mass of the body, that is mole, vo is orbital velocity, that is orbital velocity in this case, then r is the distance of the object from the earth's center, right, where me is the mass of the earth and g being the gravitational constant in this case again, so we have to add g to it. So g into me into m divided by r square, right. So we can also write g into me divided by r square is also equal to g. So in this case, okay, using the same equation over here, just see that mv square divided by r is equal to g mem divided by r square. So if we take out vo over the orbital velocity over here, then we get square root of g into me divided by r. Now in case if height is to be added to that, then we got to add h to this. Now assuming that if the height is negligible, height is very less, then we can neglect it also. We know that g into me divided by r square is equal to g. So we can write that orbital velocity is equal to square root of, okay, g into r. Now this is the final equation. Now let us go on to understand the concept of escape velocity. Now escape velocity, it is defined as the minimum velocity. Just look at over here. Escape velocity is defined as the minimum velocity with which a body must be projected so that it escapes from the gravitational field of the earth. That escape velocity is 11.2 kilometers per second. Now obviously if a body has to move upwards, now just look at the diagram over here, in this direction, then the work has to be done. Now it can be seen that the work done in pulling the body from the surface of the earth, that is from the earth's attraction. Now we can give it with an equation as per again universal law of gravitation, that is equal to g into me into m divided by r, where me is the mass of the earth and r is the radius of the earth. Now again we are taking the distance between the that the object is on the surface of the earth. And if the body is projected with a kinetic velocity greater than this value, then obviously it is moving to space. So it means that now we got to give an object a kinetic energy which is greater than this g into mem divided by r. Now then only it can escape into space. So the escape velocity ve can be given by, so in this case ve can be given by half mv square is the equation of kinetic energy. Then we also know that this equation, that g is equal to me into m divided by r. So if we substitute the values accordingly, then we get ve is equal to again square root of 2 into g into me divided by r. Sorry, this is r square divided by r, which is nothing but is equal to square root of 2 into r into g. So either you can write capital R or small r. Let us use small r in all cases. So finally we get it ve is equal to, we can note down ve is equal to square root of 2 into r into g. Now this escape velocity is independent of the mass of the rocket, that is mass of the body. So in the case of earth, the escape velocity is 11.2 kilometers per second. So we have already seen that the orbital velocity is equal to v into o square root of r into g, whereas escape velocity is equal to square root of 2 into r into g. So we can say that escape velocity is equal to square root of 2 into v orbital velocity. So that's how we can give it. Now let us come to the concept of understanding of geostationary satellites. See it over here. Let us see the diagram over here. A geostationary orbit, this is what is called a geostationary orbit. Now it is a distance of 36,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. I can see it over here. This is a polar axis. This is a polar orbit over here. This is a geostationary orbit moving in this case. This is the Earth's lowest Earth orbit over here in this case, and this is how it moves. Now if a satellite has got the same period of revolution as the rotation of the earth, then they appear to be stationary with relative to each other. then such kind of satellites are called as geostationary satellites. For example, if this is the Earth and satellite is placed over here, and the speed with which satellite moves, that is centripetal force or the velocity of the orbital velocity of the satellite is equal to that of the Earth's rotation, then obviously we feel that the satellite is at rest relative to the Earth. Now, such kind of satellites are called as geostationary satellites. These satellites will remain in fixed positions relative to the Earth at a specific height above the equator. They are basically used in relay facilities. By using geostationary satellites, now it is possible to connect any part of the globe with any other part of the globe by placing three satellites in proper directions, so or positions. So what in this case is, for example, if this is the Earth orbit, and if this is the Earth, and if this is the orbit Earth, then three satellites are placed in three different directions over here at three different positions. Okay, the main objective is to establish a communication link. Now the scientists have been successful in uniting the people as one entity using this kind of geostationary satellites. These satellites are called action satellites also. Now with this we are able to see any event happening at any part in the world as live event because of the satellites. These kind of satellites. Now let us go on to understand a brief about the Indian space program. The Indian space program was started way back in 1963 with the launch of American research rocket from Tumba. ISRO, that is Indian Space Research Organization, was established in 1969. Okay, for the progress in space research and technology. Aryabhata was our first Indian satellite launched in the year 1965. Now, Bhaskara 1 was the first among the Indian remote sensing satellites which was launched in 1979. Now after Bhaskara, again there were so many in Indian remote sensing satellites which have been launched, and the controlling of these the monitoring and controlling of these satellites, they have it is being done at a master control facility at a place called Hassan in Karnataka. Now the technological advancement has made it possible to launch many space satellite launch vehicles. Now four launch vehicles, namely satellite launch vehicle, that is SLV-3, augmented satellite launch vehicle, that is ASLV, and polar satellite launch vehicle, that is PSLV, and geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle, that is GSLV, have been built and successfully tested. So today various satellites are being utilized in various fields because these satellites are basically used in communications, they are used in television and radio transmission, they are also used in meteorology, and they are used in agriculture, forest resource monitoring, they are used in detection of underground water, they are used in detection of minerals and map making, monitoring of air, sound and thermal pollutions. The various application centers of ISRO, they are located in Bangalore, they are located in Thiruvananthapuram, they are located in Tumba, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, and many other cities. Now, the ISRO also is playing a very important role at the international level. Now that completes the concept. Thank you.